You ever feel like your brain just has way too many tabs open? You're trying to focus on something important, like school or a project, maybe your future, but there's this constant buzz in the background. Worries about work, money, that never-ending to-do list. It just keeps pulling you away. It's so frustrating. It can feel like it's enough to drive you crazy. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, well, you are in exactly the right place.
So, in this explainer, we're going to map out the path from that feeling of mental chaos to a real state of clarity. We're going to explore some practical, science-backed strategies to help quiet that noise, get your focus back, and really create the mental space you need to thrive. Okay, let's get into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll figure out what we're even aiming for by defining mental clarity. Then, we'll check out the philosophy of minimalism as a powerful tool to help us get there. After that, we get practical, tackling the clutter in our physical space, our digital lives, and even in our personal lives. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the ultimate goal, hitting that amazing state of flow.
All right, so before we even think about clearing the clutter, let's get a really sharp picture of what we're actually aiming for. What does clarity even mean?
Here's the key thing to get. Mental clarity isn't about having a totally empty mind. That's not the goal. It's about having an organized one. It's that mental sharpness that lets you actually process information and act on it instead of just feeling completely swamped by everything coming at you. And if you're wondering why this feels so hard right now, well, here's a huge piece of the puzzle. Research shows we spend, on average, 45% of our waking hours staring at screens, almost half our lives. This constant flood of digital input is a massive source of mental clutter. It's literally rewiring our brains for distraction, making it harder and harder to find that quiet, focused space.
So how do we fight back? We can actually turn to a really powerful philosophy. And no, it's not just about white walls and having like one chair in your living room. We're talking about minimalism as a strategy for a clearer mind.
I think psychologist Dr. Mark Travers puts this perfectly. He sees minimalism not as being about depriving yourself, but as being about intentionality. It's a deliberate choice to remove all the distractions so you can actually focus on what's truly important to you. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, by living with less, you gain autonomy. You're free from that constant pressure to just buy more stuff. You build a sense of competence by taking real control over your environment. And this creates mental space, because the research is clear. Less physical clutter directly leads to less internal chaos. It makes you more aware of your own values, and the whole thing just leads to more positive emotions, like joy and calm.
Okay, let's put this philosophy into practice. We're going to start with our first area of action, our physical space. I think we all kind of underestimate how much our physical environment impacts our mental state. It's huge.
Now, the key here is to not get overwhelmed. Don't try to declutter your entire house in one weekend. Just start small with one little clutter hotspot. You know, that one chair or your bedside table? Set a timer for just 15 minutes. That's it. This gives you these small, achievable wins that build momentum. Then try simple rules like one in, one out. But the most crucial part is to pick up each item and ask yourself, does this thing actually serve me? Does it add real value to my life? If the answer is no, it might be time to let it go.
Okay, next up is the invisible clutter. The stuff that we can't see but we can definitely feel. It drains so much of our attention. Our digital lives are often way more cluttered than our homes, and it is time for a detox. Think of this as just good digital hygiene. Spend a few minutes every single day unsubscribing from junk mail. Scroll through your phone and delete those apps you haven't opened in months. And this one is a game changer. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Every single buzz and beep is a tiny little interruption that just shatters your focus. By creating tech-free zones like your bedroom and setting time limits, you're not just organizing files, you're actually taking back your attention span.
All right, so we're moving from the stuff we can touch to the stuff we can't. Because clutter doesn't just exist in our houses and on our phones. It exists in our schedules and in our relationships too.
And you know what? The same principles apply here. A jam-packed schedule isn't a badge of honor or a sign of productivity. It's a source of decision fatigue, and it creates the exact same mental strain as a cluttered room. It raises your stress hormones and makes it basically impossible to focus.
So the first step is to do a time audit. For 1 week, just see where your time actually goes. This lets you consciously decide to prioritize the stuff that really moves you toward your goals, and that also means learning the superpower of saying no to things that don't. And please, don't forget to schedule downtime. It's not lazy, it's absolutely essential for recharging your batteries. Now, this can be the most challenging area to declutter, for sure, but it's also one of the most rewarding.
Just like stuff in our homes, our relationships can either energize us or they can drain us. It's so important to figure out which connections are truly serving your well-being. And to do that, we can ask ourselves a few really key questions.
First and foremost, how does this relationship make me feel? I mean, really, after you interact with this person, do you usually feel supported and happy, or do you feel kind of drained and frustrated? That emotional gut check is a super powerful signal.
Second, is there a mutual effort here? Is it a two-way street? Or do you find that you're consistently the one putting in all the work, making all the plans, or doing all the compromising?
Next, can you be your real, authentic self in this relationship? Can you communicate openly without being afraid? If you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, that's a major sign of clutter.
And finally, and this is so crucial, are my boundaries respected? Healthy boundaries are non-negotiable for protecting your energy. Answering these questions honestly helps us see which connections are lifting us up and which ones are just adding to the noise.
Okay, so once we've started clearing away all that external and internal clutter, we create the space for something pretty remarkable to happen. We can move beyond just managing stress and start to actively cultivate a peak state of performance and, well, enjoyment.
This is the state of flow, and I'm willing to bet you felt it before. It's when you're so absorbed in something that time just seems to disappear. You're completely focused, you feel energized, and whatever you're doing feels almost effortless. We call it being in the zone. It's pretty much the ultimate state of mental clarity in action. So what's the secret to finding flow? It's not just about doing something you're good at. It happens in that perfect sweet spot where a high-level challenge meets a high level of skill. See, if the challenge is too low for your skill level, you get bored. But if the challenge is way too high for your skill, you just get anxious. Flow is that perfect, energized balance right in the middle. Ultimately, all this decluttering, it's not really about having a clean house or an empty inbox. It's about creating the right conditions for you to perform at your best and feel deeply fulfilled. By clearing the clutter from our spaces, our screens, our schedules, and our lives, we open the door to focus, to clarity, and to flow. So the only question left is, what will you do with it?